Well, Syria already missed one deadline last December 31st, and lo and behold, this week they missed their next big deadline to hand over some of those chemicals. Remember, we put that in place last October, lest we were going to bomb them and get involved, and the president drew his line in the sand, and apparently they stepped over it twice. Let's get some analysis from Bill Gertz, who joins us on our Turnkey.pro answer line, senior editor for the Washington Free Beacon. Any surprise that Damascus missed yet another deadline?
Hi, John and Amy. Good morning. No surprise there. No, this was clearly a stalling tactic on the part of the Syrian government to try to put off international pressure in the midst of their civil war there. So I'm not surprised at all that they haven't given up their chemical weapons or gave only a small percentage of them.
So they're at 4% right now of the 1,300 metric tons that they said they were going to give up. When you say the Syrian government, aren't you really just saying the Russian government?
Well, yeah, that and the Iranian government on top of that. I mean, those are the key allies of the Bashar Assad regime.
But, Bill, is anyone going to put pressure on Russia because everyone's watching the Olympics right now and he's a bit busy?
Well, yeah, the Russians have really turned in a Soviet direction under Putin. You know, I think the big sticking point right now is the fact that they're harboring Edward Snowden. You know, they just had a congressional hearing this week that said that the biggest national security threat to the United States was not Iran's nuclear program or China's military buildup. It was leaks from Edward Snowden. So that kind of gives you a sense of where the U.S. intelligence community views its threats.
Assad is blaming the delay on moving these chemical stockpiles on the rebels. Are they a true threat to the transportation of the chemicals?
That could be one argument that they make. I think it's more or less a lack of sincerity. Clearly, these weapons, these deadly nerve agents and others, blister agents, are what's keeping the regime in power. The threat of using them, he's already used them and killed a mass number of people last year. We saw that. And clearly he doesn't want to give them up because in a way, they're kind of strategic weapons for Assad.
I thought for sure a year ago that guy was going to be gone. It looks like he has survived, and not only survived, but thrived.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was on the brink of being overthrown. Now you have the rebels even more divided than they were before.
Talking here with Bill Gertz, senior editor for the Washington Free Beacon. Let's turn our attention to Iran, and specifically, I guess, maybe to Washington, D.C. Earlier this week, a bipartisan group of senators demanded that Harry Reid bring an Iranian sanction bill to the floor for debate. It would probably pass. The veto probably could be overridden. The House is a foregone conclusion. This would directly challenge the president. In your opinion, is it necessary to put that kind of pressure on the president?
Absolutely. I think in the aftermath of this debacle with Syrian chemical weapons, trying to get Iran to comply with international controls on its nuclear program is another fool's errand, in my view. It looks like what they're trying to do is pass a bill that would impose sanctions but delay the imposition for the 6-month period during which Iran is supposed to come into compliance on its nuclear program, and that is basically stopping highly enriched uranium. But again, I don't have any confidence that the Iranians are going to follow through with any commitments. They've stated flat out that they're going to continue their nuclear program. They insist it's not for nuclear weapons. By all measures, it looks like they are building nuclear weapons.
Bill, can you tell me what the UN investigation team has confiscated so far from Iran?
Well, I'm not certain of the details of that. Basically, the UN is trying to get to the bottom of a lot of these programs. They had military programs in the past where they looked at things like high-speed switches, which are used in detonators. They conducted explosive experiments, also nuclear weapons related. The Iranians haven't been forthcoming with those programs, and that's really what the UN has been trying to resolve. What happened in the past, what's continuing. A lot of the nuclear sites in Iran are not even part of the agreement. For example, this Parchin facility, which is one of the nuclear sites, is not part of the deal.
Bill, who do you think is behind the alleged leaked phone call between our U.S. Assistant Secretary of State and our Ukrainian ambassador?
Oh, yeah, clearly this is the Russians playing games with surveillance. I haven't heard Edward Snowden speak out about this kind of government surveillance, seeing as he's under the control of the Russian government in Moscow.
And when did that phone call take place?
I don't know the timing of that, but clearly it was meant to embarrass Victoria Nuland, who they wanted to expose as somehow being behind a U.S. plot to overthrow the Ukrainian government. Clearly, the Ukrainians don't need our help in that sense. The Ukrainians have one enemy, and it's the Russians. And the government in the Ukraine right now wants to align Ukraine further with Russia, and that's really what's at the core of that dispute.
Have we bought or confiscated the nuclear weapons that the Ukrainians used to have, they were in possession of?
They gave them up back in the early 90s. They had a number of nuclear stockpiles. The things that they have now in the Ukraine are missile production factories. They still have some of those factories, and they're still cranking out some various missiles of various ranges.
I just wonder, with this leaked phone call, obviously it's meant to put a wedge between us and the EU as well, with her saying F the EU. How involved were they in the tamping down of tensions in the Ukraine?
Well, you know how the Europeans kind of approach things. It's much more of a conciliatory approach, although I think some of the Eastern Europeans certainly have no illusions about the Russians, looking at them as kind of now under Putin as a throwback to the Soviet Union.
And Victoria Nuland, she's not going to lose her job over this.
No, I think she's pretty solid. She had to come out and apologize. It was obviously a very effective, exposure campaign, and it shows the risks of everyone's conversations on the phone.
Yeah, never believe anything at any time is private.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it, and f*** the EU.
No, exactly.
It's just so sweet. It's the sweetest F-bomb I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is kind of
a matter of fact
interesting explanation for what they feel that the Europeans are not doing enough to support the opposition in Ukraine.
Bill, if we had more time, we'd get your version of the perfect F-bomb, but unfortunately, we've got to move along for this Friday.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
We don't know how you sleep at night, knowing what you know about and knowing what you write about, but try to get some rest this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Gertz, our go-to guy for national security, senior editor for the Washington Free Beacon, with John and Amy here on our Turnkey.pro answer line.